Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gay Let's Play Mass Effect Uno. 1 of 3, well, of the original trilogy at least. So we're gonna go ahead and pop in. This is going to be a Codex episode. As I said, I'm gonna make it do everybody a favor and kind of do the Codexes in their own episode. So if you are not interested in going through them like I am, you can skip over this episode and go to the next one. So let us start with, I guess we'll start with the primaries.
The Asari were the first species to discover the Citadel. When the Salarians arrived, it was the Asari who proposed the establishment of the Citadel Council to maintain peace throughout the galaxy. Since then, the Asari have served as the mediators and centrists of the Council. An all-female race, the Asari reproduce through a form of parthenogenesis. They can attune their nervous system to that of another individual of any gender and of any species to reproduce. This capability has led to the unseemly and inaccurate rumors about Asari promiscuity. Asari can live for over 1,000 years, passing through 3 stages of life. In the maiden stage, they wander restlessly, seeking new knowledge and experience. When the matron stage begins, they meld with interesting partners to produce their offspring. This ends when they reach the matriarch stage, where they assume the roles of leaders and counselors.
Yes.
The second species to join the Citadel, the Salarians, are warm-blooded amphibians with a hyperactive metabolism. Salarians think fast, talk fast, and move fast. To Salarians, other species seem sluggish and dull-witted. Unfortunately, their metabolic speed leaves them with a relatively short lifespan. Salarians over the age of 40 are a rarity.
Yeah, that's sad.
The Salarians were responsible for advancing the development of the primitive Krogan species to use as soldiers during the Rachni Wars. They were also behind the creation of the genophage bioweapon the Turians used to quell the Krogan rebellions several centuries later. Salarians are known for their observational capability and non-linear thinking. This manifests as an aptitude for research and espionage. They are constantly experimenting and inventing, and it is generally accepted that they always know more than they are letting on.
I love the Salarians.
50,000 years ago, the Protheans were the only spacefaring species in the galaxy. They vanished in a swift galactic extinction. Only the legacy of their empire remains. They are believed to have built the mass relays and the Citadel, which have allowed numerous species to explore and expand throughout the galaxy. Prothean ruins are found on worlds across the galaxy. While surprisingly intact for their age, functioning examples of Prothean paleotechnology are rare. Time and generations of looters have picked their dead cities and derelict stations clean. Some believe the Protheans meddled in the evolution of younger races. The Hanar homeworld of Kadje, for example, shows clear evidence of former Prothean occupation. The presence of a former Prothean observation post on Mars has caused a rebirth of interventionary evolutionists among humans. These individuals believe the god myths of ancient civilizations are misremembered encounters with aliens. Though now extinct, the Rachni once threatened every species in Citadel space. Over 2,000 years ago, explorers foolishly opened a mass relay to a previously unknown system and encountered something never seen before or since, a species of spacefaring insects guided by a hive mind intelligence. Unfortunately, the Rachni were not peaceful, and the galaxy was plunged into a series of conflicts known as the Rachni Wars. Attempts to negotiate were futile, as it was impossible to make contact with the hive queens that guided the race from beneath the surface of their toxic home world. The emergence of the Krogan ended the Rachni Wars. Bred to survive the harshest environments, the Krogan were able to strike at the queens in their lairs and reclaim conquered Council worlds. But when Krogan fleets pressed them back to their homeworld, the Rachni refused to surrender, and the Krogan eradicated them from the galaxy.
I didn't realize that the Rachni sort of looks kind of shrimp. Doesn't it look shrimp-like? Shrimp-like with, like, legs? Did not know that. Non-council races.
In the early 2160s, the Alliance began aggressive colonization of worlds in the Skyllian Verge. much to the dismay of the Batarians, who had been developing the region for several decades. In 2171, the Batarians petitioned the Council to declare the Verge a zone of Batarian interest. The Council refused, however, declaring unsettled worlds in the region open to human colonization. In protest, the Batarians closed their Citadel embassy and severed official diplomatic relations with the Council, effectively becoming a rogue state.
I did not know that.
They instigated a proxy war in the Verge by funneling money and weapons to criminal organizations, urging them to strike at human colonies. Hostilities peaked with the Skillian Blitz of 2176, an attack on the human capital of Elysium by Batarian-funded pirates and slavers. In 2178, the Alliance retaliated with a crushing assault on the moon of Torfin, long used as a staging base by Batarian-backed criminals. In the aftermath, the Batarians retreated into their own systems and are now rarely seen in Citadel space.
I actually did not know this. This is really cool for someone like me who has played through all three of the games. I'm glad that I'm taking time to actually really spend the time to go through these codexes, because I had no idea that the Batarians were originally a council race, or at least were more involved in the council, and then they got upset at humans because the council declared certain zones more for human interest than Batarian interests. And then I remember hearing about the Skillian Blitz, but I never took the time to really find out what the Skillian Blitz involved. I just kept hearing mentions of it, and I didn't realize that that had anything to do with the Batarians. So that's, or at least I kind of did, but I didn't know the full story. So that is really cool stuff. All right.
The Elcor are a Citadel species native to the high-gravity world Dakuna. They are massive creatures, standing on 4 muscular legs for increased stability. Elcor move slowly, an evolved response to an environment where a fall can be lethal.
Oh,
This
right.
has colored their psychology, making them deliberate and conservative. Elcor's speech is ponderous and monotone. Among themselves, scent, slight movements, and subvocalized infrasound convey shades of meaning that make a human smile seem as subtle as a fireworks display. Since their subtlety can lead to misunderstandings with other species, the Elcor often go out of their way to clarify when they are being sarcastic, amused, or angry. Dakuna's high gravity impedes mountain formation. Most of the world consists of flat, open plains, which prehistoric Elcor wandered across in small family bands. Modern Elcor still prefer open sky, and can become restless and uncomfortable on long starship journeys.
The Elcor are probably my favorite races in the Mass Effect universe. I love the Elcor.
The Hanar are a Citadel species known for excessive politeness. They speak with scrupulous precision and take offense at improper language. Hanar that expect to deal with other species take special courses to help them unlearn their tendency to take offense at improper speech.
I did not know that.
All Hanar have 2 names. The face name is known to the world. The soul name is kept for use among close friends and relations. Hanar never refer to themselves in the first person in conversation with someone they know on a face name basis. To do so is considered egotistical, so instead they refer to themselves as this one, or the impersonal it. Their homeworld, Kaje, has 90% ocean cover and orbits an energetic white star, resulting in a permanent blanket of cloud. Due to the presence of Prothean ruins on the world, many Hanar worship them, and Hanar myths often speak of an elder race that civilized them by teaching them language. When the Asari discovered the Citadel, they also discovered the Keepers, a docile, multi-limbed insect race that seemingly exists only to maintain and repair the Great Prothean Station. Early attempts to communicate with or study the Keepers were failures, and it is now illegal to interfere with or impede Keeper activity. Because they are completely non-threatening, Keepers have become virtually invisible to everyone else. Similarly, they seem indifferent to other species, except for their tendency to help new arrivals integrate themselves into the Citadel. No matter how many Keepers die due to old age, violence, or accident, they maintain a constant number.
See, that's weird.
No one has discovered the source of new Keepers, but some hypothesize they are genetic constructs. biological androids created somewhere deep in the inaccessible core of the Citadel itself.
It just boggles my mind that people know so little about the Keepers. That do people not observe, you know, when Keepers die off, do people not, like, observe where the new Keepers are coming from? Like, I don't know. I just find that the whole thing about Keepers was the thing that was very difficult for me to grasp, because it just seems so far-fetched that when you've gotten so advanced that you couldn't, like, figure out more about them. You know, if one of them died, what happens to the body? They said it just explodes, right? There's no way for them to, like, take a tissue sample or whatever, learn more about their DNA. I mean, I don't know. That to me was very hard for me to swallow, that the Keepers are just that much of an enigma to, you know, such an advanced, you know, kind of time.
The Krogan evolved in a hostile and vicious environment. Until the invention of gunpowder weapons, eaten by predators was still the #1 cause of Krogan fatalities. Afterwards, it was death by gunshot. When the Solarians discovered them, the Krogan were a brutal, primitive species, struggling to survive a self-inflicted nuclear winter. The Solarians culturally uplifted them, teaching them to use and build modern technology, so they could serve as soldiers in the Rachni War.
Right.
Liberated from the harsh conditions of their homeworld, the quick-breeding Krogan experienced an unprecedented population explosion. They began to colonize nearby worlds, even though these worlds were already inhabited. The Krogan rebellions lasted nearly a century, only ending when the Turians unleashed the Genophage, a Solarian-developed bioweapon that crushed all Krogan resistance. The Genophage makes only 1 in 1,000 pregnancies viable.
Yeah.
And today, the Krogan are a slowly dying breed. Understandably, the Krogan harbor a grudge against all other species, especially the Turians.
Understandable. But at the same time, the Krogan need to calm the heck down when they were going through the Krogan rebellions.
Driven from their home system by the Geth nearly 3 centuries ago, most Quarians now live aboard the Migrant Fleet, a flotilla of 50,000 vessels ranging in size from passenger shuttles to mobile space stations. Home to 17 million Quarians, the flotilla understandably has scarce resources. Because of this, each Quarian must go on a rite of passage known as the Pilgrimage when they come of age. They leave the fleet and only return once they have found something of value they can bring back to their people. Other species tend to look down on the Quarians for creating the Geth and for the negative impact their fleet has when it enters a system. This has led to many myths and rumors about the Quarians, including the belief that underneath their clothes and breathing masks, they are actually cybernetic creatures, a combination of organic and synthetic parts.
Right. But I don't think those rumors are just rumors.
The Volus are a member species of the Citadel with their own embassy, but they are also a client race of the Turians. Centuries ago, they were voluntarily absorbed into the hierarchy, effectively trading their mercantile prowess for Turian military protection. Erun, their homeworld, lies far beyond the normal life zone of its star. However, the world has a high-pressure greenhouse atmosphere that traps enough heat to support an ammonia-based biochemistry. As a result, the Volus must wear pressure suits and breathers when dealing with other species, as conventional nitrogen-oxygen air mixtures are poisonous to them.
Yeah.
And in the low-pressure atmospheres tolerable to most species, their flesh will actually split open.
That I did not know.
Volus culture is tribal,
Wow.
bartering lands and even people to gain status. This culture of exchange inclines them to economic pursuits. It was the Volus who authored the Unified Banking Act, and they continue to monitor and balance the Citadel economy.
I did not realize it because of the low pressure atmospheres that their flesh would actually split open. Sheesh. Oh man, the Volus. The Volus tends to be the redheaded stepchild of the races. A lot of people don't particularly... Well, I don't know if they... It's not so much that they don't like the Volus. I think it's more like they don't respect the Volus. The Volus tend to get the short end of the stick. Like... And I don't know, I don't like that, because I kind of want to see a combative Volus, because Volus are not known to be the most, I guess, they're not known to be the combative types, but...
The Citadel is an ancient deep space station, presumably constructed by the Protheans. Since the Prothean extinction, numerous species have come to call the Citadel home. It serves as the political, cultural, and financial capital of the galactic community.
Yeah, we've already done this.
The Council is an executive committee composed of The Council is an executive committee composed of representatives from the Asari Republics, the Turian Hierarchy, and the Solarian Union. Though they have no official power over the independent governments of other species, the Council's decisions carry great weight throughout the galaxy. No single Council race is strong enough to defy the other two, and all have a vested interest in compromise and cooperation. Each of the Council species has general characteristics associated with the various aspects of governing the galaxy. The Asari are typically seen as diplomats and mediators. The Solarians gather intelligence and information. The Turians provide the bulk of the military and peacekeeping forces. Any species granted an embassy on the Citadel is considered an associate member, bound by the accords of the Citadel Conventions. Associate members may bring issues to the attention of the Council, though they have no input on the decision. The Human Systems Alliance became an associate member of the Citadel in 2165. Pharos is a habitable world in the Attican Beta Cluster. 2/3 of the habitable surface is covered with the ruins of a crumbling Prothean megatropolis. In the millennia since the Prothean extinction, the ruins have been repeatedly picked over by looters many times. Pharos was considered a poor prospect for colonization, as little open ground remains for agriculture. The only sizable freshwater sources are the poles, which are tapped by the decaying Prothean aqueduct systems. The dead cities, while in good condition considering their antiquity, are of uncertain stability. Ground level is congested by a dozen meters of fallen debris, and the air is fouled by dust. In 2178, the Human Exogeny Corporation announced its intention to place a permanent colony on Pharos to thoroughly explore the ruins. The pioneer settlement was placed on the upper levels of several intact skyscrapers, using the surviving Prothean aqueducts and rooftop hydroponic gardens to support the population.
So that's one of the places we can go to next.
Noveria is a cool, rocky world with most of its hydrosphere locked up in massive glaciers. A privately chartered colony world, the planet is owned by the Noveria Development Corporation Holding Company. The NDC is funded by investment capital from 24 high-technology development firms and administrated by an executive board representing their interests. The investors built remote hot labs in isolated locations across Noveria's surface. These facilities are used for research too dangerous or controversial to be performed elsewhere, as Noveria is technically not part of Citadel space and therefore exempt from Council law. By special arrangement, Citadel Special Tactics and Reconnaissance agents have been granted extraterritorial privileges, but it remains to be seen how committed the Executive Board is to that principle. Given its unique situation, it is understandable that Noveria is often implicated in all manner of wild conspiracy theories. There are between 200 and 400 billion stars in the galaxy.
Yeah,
and
wow.
less than 1% of them have ever been visited or had their systems properly surveyed. Humanity's early expansion into the Attican Traverse was haphazard. A desperate race to claim habitable planets where populations can be economically settled. Ignored in the wake of this land grab were thousands of less hospitable worlds, each potentially rich with industrial resources. The wealth of entire solar systems lies untapped, waiting for corporate survey teams or independent pioneers to discover and exploit them. However, this is not an easy task. In addition to the environmental hazards, the fact that uncharted worlds are largely ignored makes them popular bases for criminals, revolutionaries, cults, and others who wish to remain unnoticed by galactic society.
Very interesting.
Biotics is the ability. An artificial intelligence is a self-aware computing system capable of learning and independent decision-making. Creation of a conscious AI requires adaptive code, a slow, expensive education, and a specialized quantum computer called a blue box. An AI cannot be transmitted across a communication channel or computer network. Without its blue box, an AI is no more than data files. Loading these files into a new blue box will create a new personality, as variations in the quantum hardware and runtime results create unpredictable variations. The Geth serve as a cautionary tale against the dangers of rogue AI, and in Citadel space they are technically illegal. Advocacy groups argue, however, that an AI is a living, conscious entity, deserving the same rights as organics. They argue that continued use of the term artificial is institutionalized racism on the part of organic life. The term synthetic is considered the politically correct alternative.
That last paragraph there is a very interesting conversation to have.
A virtual intelligence is an advanced form of user interface software. VIs use a variety of methods to simulate natural conversation, including an audio interface and an avatar personality to interact with. Although a VI can provide a convincing emulation of sentience, they are not self-aware, nor can they learn or take independent action. VIs are used as operating systems on commercial and home computers. Minimal VI agents are also available. Agents are compact and specialized. Some serve as personal secretaries, filtering calls and scheduling meetings based on user-defined priorities.
That's really cool.
Others are advanced search engines, propagating themselves across the extranet to collate user-requested data. Commercial VIs in a variety of stock personalities are available at any software retailer. Boutique firms and hobbyists also build unique VIs to personal specification. Although software emulation of living personalities is illegal, reconstructions of famous historical figures are common.
That's pretty funny.
Mass relays are feats of Prothean engineering advanced far beyond the technology of any living species. They are enormous structures scattered throughout the stars and can create corridors of virtually mass-free space, allowing instantaneous transit between locations separated by years or even centuries of travel using conventional FTL drives. Primary mass relays can propel ships thousands of light years, often from one spiral arm of the galaxy to another. However, they have fixed one-to-one connections. A primary relay connects to one other primary relay and nowhere else.
It's interesting.
Secondary relays can only propel ships across a few hundred light years. However, they are omnidirectional. A secondary relay can send a ship to any other relay within its limited range. There are many dormant primary relays whose corresponding twins have not yet been located. These are left inactive until their partner is charted, as established civilizations are unwilling to blindly open a passage that might connect them to a hostile species.
That is really interesting stuff about the mass relays. Quite a bit up there I didn't know.
Combat hard suits use a dual layer. Medigel is a common medicinal salve used by paramedics, EMTs, and military personnel. It combines several useful applications: a local anesthetic, disinfectant, and clotting agent all in one.
That's super
Once
cool.
applied, the gel is designed to grip tight to flesh until subjected to a frequency of ultrasound. It is sealable against liquids, most notably blood, as well as contaminants and gases. The gel is a genetically engineered bioplasm created by the CERTA Foundation, a medical technology megacorp based on Earth. Technically, Medigel violates Council laws against genetic engineering, but to date, it has proved far too useful to ban.
I did not know that it technically violated Council laws. Interesting.
All modern infantry weapons, from pistols to assault rifles, use micro-scaled mass accelerator technology. Projectiles consist of tiny metal slugs suspended within a mass-reducing field, accelerated by magnetic force to speeds that inflict kinetic damage. The ammo magazine is a simple block of metal. The gun's internal computer calculates the mass needed to reach the target based on distance, gravity, and atmospheric pressure.
That is so cool.
Then shears off an appropriate-sized slug from the block.
That is so cool.
A single block can supply thousands of rounds, making ammo a non-issue during any engagement. Top-line weapons also feature smart targeting, that allows them to correct for weather and environment. Firing on a target in a howling gale feels the same as it does on a calm day at the practice range.
Wow.
Smart targeting does not mean a bullet will automatically find the mark every time the trigger is pulled. It only makes it easier for the marksman to aim.
That is super cool. Awesome. Alien non-council races. The Krogan Rebellions. After the Rachni War, the quick-breeding Krogan expanded at the expense of their neighbors. Warlords leveraged their veteran soldiers to seize living space while the council races were still grateful. Over centuries, the Krogan conquered world after world. There was always just one more needed. When the council finally demanded withdrawal from the Asari colony of Lucia, Krogan overlord Kredak stormed off the citadel, daring the council to take their worlds back. Ooh. But the council had taken precautions. The finest STG operators and Asari huntresses had been drafted into a covert observation force, the Office of Special Tactics and Reconnaissance. Oh, the Spectres. The Spectres opened the war with crippling strategic strikes. Krogan planets went dark as computer viruses flooded the extranet. Sabotaged antimatter refineries disappeared in blue-white annihilation. Headquarters stations shattered into orbit-clogging debris, rammed by pre-placed suicide freighters. Still, this only delayed the inevitable. The war would have been lost if not for first contact with Turians, who responded to Krogan threats with a prompt declaration of war. Being on the far side of Krogan space from the Council, the Turians advanced rapidly into the lightly defended Krogan rear areas. The Krogan responded by dropping space stations and asteroids on Wow, they dropped space stations and asteroids on Turian colonies? Wow. 3 worlds were rendered completely uninhabitable. This is how rich this history is. Good gosh. It's hard enough to come up with a rich history for one species or one planet, but you got to come with a rich, history for an entire galaxy. That is just phenomenal. This was precisely the wrong approach to take with the Turians. Each is first and foremost a public servant, willing to risk his life to protect his comrades. Rather than increasing public war wariness, Krogan tactics stiffened Turian resolve. The arrival of Turian task forces saved many worlds from the warlords' marauding fleets, but it took development of the genophage bioweapon to end the war. There were decades of unrest afterwards. Rogue warlords and holdout groups of insurgents refused to surrender, or disappeared into the frontier systems to become pirates. The interesting thing about the Krogans is that their behavior they are not completely at fault. I mean, yes, they probably should not have gotten all power hungry and start, terrorizing and dominating over the other species. But the thing is, the Solarians came in and they helped advance the Krogans through technology arguably faster than they should have. I think somebody gave a analogy, it's like giving a baby a blaster, like giving the Krogan certain technologies before they were quote unquote ready. And I think a lot of it is because, the Solarians needed the Krogan to help them with the Rachni War, which helped them, but it became a very temporary fix because then they had to deal with the Krogans getting a bit trigger happy. So it's interesting that you can't just paint the Krogans as the bad guys completely, because it was sort of started by the Solarians, which was started by the Rachni, and the Solarians were only trying to help, they had good intentions. So there's just a lot of, I love how the complexity that there is with each of these creatures. You can't really take them completely by face value, and it's not, each race isn't necessarily completely black or white. There's a lot of gray. When Quarians of the migrant fleet reach young adulthood, they must leave their birth ship and find a new crew to accept them as permanent residents. To prove themselves, they must recover something of value. This is offered to their prospective captain as proof that they will not be a mere burden on the shoestring resources of the ship. I wonder how many Quarians actually fail their pilgrimage. Do they just not, or I guess if you fail the pilgrimage, you just never get to come back until you do find something valuable. I guess that makes sense. Because I don't know, has there been cases where they allowed people Quarians back, but they failed, and then if they did fail, what was like their punishment? Were they just shamed for the rest of their life? You know, I don't know. This process is called the pilgrimage. Stripped of ritual, the pilgrimage is merely an attempt to maintain genetic diversity within the small, relatively isolated population bases that make up the migrant fleet. If the young stayed and married within their birth vessel, the risk of inbreeding would increase sharply. Quarians are surgically fitted with various immunity-boosting implants in preparation for leaving on pilgrimage. Having grown up within the sterile, controlled environments of the migrant fleet ships, Quarians have virtually no natural immune systems. Yeah, that is one thing that's really interesting about their race. Citadel and Galactic Government. Citadel Conventions. These diplomatic talks occurred in the wake of the Krogan rebellions as a response to the destruction of the conflict and an attempt to distance the Council from the brutal Krogan warfare. The conventions regulate the use of weapons of mass destruction. A WMD causes environmental alteration to a world. A bomb that produces a large crater is not considered a WMD. A bomb that causes a nuclear winter is. Use of a WMD is forbidden on garden worlds like Earth. A garden world, I see. With ecospheres that can readily support a population. If a habitable world is destroyed, it will not be replaced for millions of years. That makes a lot of sense. The conventions do not forbid the use of WMD on hostile worlds or in sealed space station environments. Many militaries continue to develop and maintain stockpiles. The conventions graded weapons of mass destruction into tiers of concern. Tier 1 is the greatest threat to galactic peace. Tier 1, large kinetic impactors such as asteroid drops, which is what the Krogan used, or deorbiting space stations, effectively free and available in any system in the form of debris left over from planetary accretion. Kinetic impactors are the weapons of choice for terrorists and third galaxy nations. Now this whole thing is, these weapons of mass destruction in Mass Effect world is something that I completely do not know about. Tier 2. Uncontrolled self-replicating weapons such as nanotechnology, viral or bacteriological organisms, von Neumann devices, and destructive computer viruses. These weapons can lie dormant for millennia, waiting for a careless visitor to carry them onto another world. Tier 3. Large energy burst weapons such as nuclear or antimatter warheads. Tier 4. Alien species deliberately introduced to crowd out native forms necessary for the health of an ecosystem. Ecological tampering can take years to bear fruit, making it difficult to prove. Citadel Station Citadel Security Service, CSEC. Citadel Security is a volunteer police service answering to the Citadel Council. The 200,000 constables of CSEC are responsible for maintaining public order in the densely populated Citadel. They also provide pirate suppression, customs enforcement, and search and rescue throughout the Citadel cluster. CSEC has 6 divisions. Enforcement, uniformed officers who patrol the Citadel and respond to emergencies. Investigation, detectives who puzzle out the truth behind crimes and bring perpetrators to justice. Customs, screens the thousands of passengers and cargo containers that pass through the Citadel's ports every day. Network, deals with cybercrimes like identity and copyright theft, hacking and viral attacks, and illegal artificial intelligence. Special response, deals with hostage situations, bombs, and heavily armed criminals. In the unlikely event that attackers aboard the Citadel, they are also the front line of defense, armed with military-grade equipment. Patrol, naval arm with ships stationed throughout the Citadel cluster. Unlike other divisions, they are rarely seen in the Citadel, nor do they stay in one place long. Joining CSEC is prestigious. Applications must be sponsored by a Citadel counselor or the ambassador of an associate council race. Generally, applicants have many years of distinguished service in the military or police force of their nation, but an experienced applicant with demonstrable talent will be fairly considered. An inexperienced applicant with demonstrable talent will be fairly considered. Wow, so you had to have served in the military to become into CSEC. Interesting. CSEC inspectors are often at odds. Many CSEC members, notably current executor Venari Palin, believe that allowing inspectors to be above the law is a dangerous practice. The actions of Saren Arterius lend credence to this position. The specters, in turn, are aggravated when CSEC's dedication to procedure and due process hampers their investigations. That is interesting. You know, there is something to say about how if you stick to the books too much, that can be, like, doing that to the extreme can be more harmful than helpful. But then again, you know, breaking the rules willy-nilly without any order, I mean, that other extreme is very harmful too. Citadel Station, the Presidium Ring. The ring is an enclosed loop of park-like space serving as the connection point for the wards. The interior walls are lined with the embassies of influential species and private residences for the galaxy's elite. The Presidium is full of open-air restaurants, bars, and luxurious meeting areas. Gravity is about a third of Earth normal. A holographic sky is projected over the ceiling of the ring. Oh, I did not realize that. Unlike the 24/7 bustle of the wards, the Presidium maintains a 20-hour day schedule. Oh. With a 6-hour night where lights are dimmed and the sky goes through a night cycle. That is very interesting. Offices and residences are often open to the interior. It is not unusual for embassies to have no exterior wall at all. This does not cause a crime problem due to the heavy CSEC presence and ubiquitous monitoring devices on the Presidium. Thieves are quickly identified and apprehended. The ring is the location of Citadel spaceports. Being closer to the center of spin, there is less motion for a ship to match, and the reduced spin gravity makes handling cargo easier. Hundreds of ships pass through the Citadel every day, and every species with an embassy is granted a private dock. The tower at the center of the ring holds the administration of the Citadel Council. The tower rises over a kilometer from the ring, appearing to thrust forward parallel to the ward arms. As the tower is at the center of the spin axis, it experiences little centrifugal force. That is interesting. Gravity is maintained using Mass Effect fields at a 90-degree angle to the ring and wards. A consular dock can be found at the base of the tower. While normally used for diplomatic couriers and Spectre business, the shuttles docked here can evacuate the Council government in an emergency. The Serpent Nebula. The Citadel is surrounded by a blue-tinted reflection nebula. The light of the nebula is actually light from the Citadel, scattered and reflected back at the station. At first, the Serpent Nebula was assumed to be made of microscopic construction debris. Prevailing theory holds that the Protheans used molecular nanotechnology to manufacture the incredibly durable materials used in the Citadel. But unlike other nebulae, the Serpent does not dissipate over time. Therefore, it must be replenished constantly. The current popular theory is that the non-recyclable waste collected by the Citadel's keeper, is somehow rendered down to the atomic or molecular level and ejected into the cloud. The thick nebula represents a navigation hazard. Beyond the relatively clear areas around the Citadel, electrical discharges are common. These are not blocked by the kinetic barriers and can severely damage metal-framed starships. In addition, some dense knots of dust can overwhelm the repulsion of kinetic barriers on smaller ships. If such a vessel is moving fast enough at the time, the effects are similar to being hit by a sandblaster. Attempting to reach the Citadel through open space navigation is unadvisable. The only safe approach is through the various mass relays that orbit it. The wards. The majority of Citadel's population lives in the wards, the 5 massive arms of station that house the residential and commercial districts. Many galactic races have established cultural enclaves there. Population density and cost of living are extremely high, akin to Earth cities such as Hong Kong and Singapore. The wards are open-topped. I'm wondering if that's Hong Kong and Singapore, like in that time zone, in that time frame, or in our present here in real life time frame. Probably in their time frame. The wards are open-topped with skyscrapers rising from the superstructure. Towers are sealed against vacuum, as breathable atmosphere envelope is only maintained to a height of about 7 meters. The atmosphere is contained by the centrifugal force of rotation, and a membrane of dense, colorless sulfur hexafluoride gas, held in place by carefully managed Mass Effect fields. The view from the wards is spectacular. In the background, stars, a Serpent Nebula, and the nearby blue giant called the Widow move across the sky as the station rotates to stabilize itself. In the foreground, the lights of buildings and vehicles on the opposing ward arms perpetually shine. The Citadel has no real day or night. While the station keeps to standard galactic time for political functions, businesses rarely close, and residents acclimate to sleep and work according to the personal need rather than a day-night cycle. Oh, that's interesting. So even though they do give it, a 6-hour night thing, each person individually, just sleeps as needed. Which probably makes sense, because I'm assuming certain alien species, only require a certain amount of sleep. Additions and modifications are constantly being constructed, though they must stay within certain specifications that will not compromise the operation of the station. Occasionally, the keepers will descend on the areas of the wards and move or change their architecture without expansion. Residents have learned to live with these inexplicable intrusions. The Treaty of Phyrexin. Due to the destructive potential of dreadnoughts, The Council races agreed to the Ferrixon Naval Conference to fix their ratio of dreadnought construction between themselves. At the top of the pyramid is the peacekeeping Turian fleet. Below the Turians are the other Council races, currently the Asari and the Solarians. Council associate races are at the bottom. The Human Systems Alliance is part of this last group. The ratio of Turian to Council to associate dreadnoughts is 5 to 3 to 1. For every dreadnought humans are permitted to build, the Asari have 3, and the Turians 5. Interesting, I did not know that there was a ratio that needed to be maintained. Ships and vehicles. The FTL drive. New space travelers ask, what does it look like outside a ship moving at faster than light speed? Part of the answer can be seen in a simple pane of glass. Light travels slower through the glass than it does through open air. Light also moves slower in conventional space than it does in a high-speed Mass Effect field. This causes refraction. Any light entering at an angle is bent and separated into a spectrum. Objects outside the ship will appear refracted. The greater the difference between the objective exterior and subjective interior speeds of light, the greater the refraction. This is a really interesting science-like explanation. As the subjective speed of light is raised within the field, objects outside will appear to redshift, eventually becoming visible only to radio telescope antennae. High-energy electromagnetic sources normally hidden to the eye become visible in the high blue spectrum. As the speed of light continues to be raised, X-ray, gamma ray, and eventually cosmic ray sources become visible. Stars will be replaced by pulsars and accretion disks of black holes, quasars, and gamma ray bursts. To an outside observer, a ship within a Mass Effect drive envelope appears blue shifted. If within a field that allows travel at twice the speed of light, any radiation it emits has twice the energy as normal. If the ship is in a field about 200 times light speed, it rotates visible light as X-rays and gamma rays, and the infrared heat from the hull is blue shifted up into the visible spectrum or higher. Ships moving at FTL are visible at great distances, though their signature will only propagate the speed of light. Starship Cruisers. Cruiserweight starships are the standard combat unit encountered away from large naval bases, the poor blood infantry of most fleets. Nimble scouting frigates have neither the punch nor the stamina to stand up to serious combat, and the mighty dreadnoughts are a strategic resource, carefully hoarded and committed to the most critical battles. Cruisers perform routine independent show-the-flag patrols in settled systems and lead flotillas of frigates in small engagements such as pirate suppression campaigns. In major fleet engagements, cruiser squadrons support the dreadnought battle line by screening their flanks against enemies attempting to maneuver for a main gun bow shot from their vulnerable broadsides. Alliance cruisers are named after cities of Earth. Starships, Dreadnought. The Dreadnought is the ultimate arbiter of space warfare. Millions of tons of metal, ceramic, and polymer dedicated to projection of firepower against an enemy vessel of like ability. No sane commander would face a Dreadnought with anything less than another Dreadnought. A Dreadnought's power lies in the length of its main gun. Dreadnoughts range from 800 meters to 1 kilometer long, with a main gun of commensurate length. I love that term, commensurate length. An 800-meter mass accelerator is capable of accelerating one 2-kilogram slug to a velocity of 283 kilometers per second every 2 seconds. Each slug has the kinetic energy of 38 kilotons of TNT. Oh my gosh! 3 times the energy released by the fission weapon that destroyed Hiroshima. When used to bombard planets, some of the kinetic energy is lost due to atmospheric re-entry friction. As a rule of thumb, each atmosphere of air pressure saps approximately 20% of projectiles' impact energy. The Turian fleet presently has 37 dreadnoughts, the Asari 21, and the Solarian 16. Humanity has 6, which does match the rule that I read before, with an additional hull under construction at Arcturus Station. Alliance battleships are named for the mountains of Earth. Oh. Everest class, Everest, Fuji, Elbrus. Kilimanjaro class, Kilimanjaro, Taishan, Shasta, Aconcagua under construction. This is really interesting. I love all this details. Starship, fighters. Fighters are single-pilot combat small craft. They are lightweight enough that they can economically be fitted with powerful element zero cores, making them capable of greater acceleration and sharper maneuvers than starships. Kinetic barrier shields changed starship battles from short, vicious bloodbaths to extended, indecisive slugging matches. Only the main gun of a dreadnought could punch a mass accelerator slug through the barriers of an opposing dreadnought. This changed with the development of the fighter-launched mass disruptor torpedo, a short-range weapon that can penetrate kinetic barriers to destroy their projector assemblies. Starship Guardian defenses must be overwhelmed through swarm tactics. Fighter groups can take heavy casualties, pressing their torpedo attacks home. Once fighter-launched torpedoes have crippled an enemy's barriers, the mass accelerators of frigates and cruisers can make short work of them. Interceptors are a type of fighter optimized to attack other fighters with no ability to damage starships. Interceptors are used to screen friendly units from incoming fighter attack. Frigates. Frigates are light escort and scouting vessels. They often have extensive Guardian systems to provide anti-fighter screening for capital ships and carry a squad of Marines for security and ground-side duty. Unlike larger vessels, frigates are able to land on planets. Frigates' drive systems allow them to achieve high FTL cruise speeds. They also have proportionally larger thrusters and lighter design mass, allowing them to maneuver more readily. In combat, speed and maneuverability make frigate immune to the long-range fire of larger vessels. In the time it takes projectiles to reach them, frigates are no longer where they were predicted to be. In fleet combat, frigates are organized into wolf pack flotillas of 4 to 6. Wolf packs speed through enemy formations, hunting enemy vessels whose kinetic barriers have been taken down by fighter-launched disruptor torpedoes. The wolf pack circle strafes vulnerable targets, using their superior speed and maneuverability to evade return fire. Alliance frigates are named for great battles in human history. Interesting. And if I understand this correctly, I believe the Normandy itself is a frigate. I believe. Technology. Communications Administration. While comm buoys allow rapid transmission, there is a finite amount of bandwidth available. Given that trillions of people may be trying to pass a message through a given buoy at any one time, access to the network is parceled out on a priority tiers. The Citadel Council and the Spectres have absolute priority. If they're using all the bandwidth, everyone else must wait. Individual governments and their militaries enjoy the next highest tier. Interesting. During wartime, civilian communication can suffer hours or even days of lag. Jeez, days of lag. Intelligence agencies study ping time through various systems to predict military buildups. Below the government and militaries, bandwidth priority is sold to the highest bidder. Media conglomerates, particularly headline news networks, purchase higher priority to provide their viewers with timely information. Corporations that require timely information response capability, for example financial institutions and investment firms, also invest heavily in priority access. The funds acquired through sales of bandwidth are used to maintain and expand the communications infrastructure. While everyone with a computer has guaranteed free and unlimited access to the galactic extranet, they are last in line for bandwidth and may have to wait for their request to be processed. Bandwidth resale corporations use investment capital to purchase blocks of high priority access, made available by paid subscription. Credits, or creds. The standard credit was established by the Citadel's Unified Banking Act as a currency of interstellar trade, and I believe that's by the Volus, if I remember correctly. The credit has managed floating exchange rate, calculated in time by the central bank to maintain the average value of all participating currencies. Some regional currencies are worth more than a credit, and some less. Hard currency can be stolen or counterfeited, so electronic fund transfers are the norm. More importantly, physical transactions cannot be easily tracked, and making them ideal for tax evasion or the purchase of illegal goods. When the Alliance joined the Citadel, its various national treasuries were linked into the credit network. A human with a bank account of Mexican pesos, Japanese yen, or Indian rupees can purchase any item priced in credits at fair market value. All economies that participate in the credit network are required to price items in both local currency and credits. Nice. Alright everybody, I think that was all of the Codex stuff. Phew! Well, if you're able to live through that, thank you. And hopefully you learned a few things that you didn't know, just like I did, regardless of, how long you may have played all the games. I definitely learned a heck of a lot. So that was all really, really fascinating and really juicy stuff. So thanks again, guys, for watching this Codex episode. And in the next episode, we'll continue on and start chatting with our crew. Until then, everybody, love yourselves and love each other.